Welcome to the Crib Child Rights in Business podcast, a bi-monthly show by the Centre for Child Rights in Business. In this episode, we're excited to bring you insights from Sabita Banerji, CEO and founder of the NGO Thirst, as she discusses the human rights risks within the global tea industry. Despite being the second most popular drink after water, the tea sector struggles with widespread poverty at the production level. Sabita explains how the denial of this reality keeps workers in poor conditions and how young people are leaving the sector. She emphasizes the importance of acknowledging this poverty and shares why the industry must take collective responsibility. We also dive into the role of consumers in this conversation and creative solutions to tackle poverty in the tea industry. Stay tuned as we unpack these important issues and explore how we can work together to make the tea industry stronger and more equitable.
Today we have a very special guest, Sabita Banerji, the CEO of the International Roundtable for Sustainable Tea. Welcome, Sabita. Could we start with hearing a little bit about you and Thirst International?
Thank you. Yes, so Thirst is what our organisation is most commonly known as. I was born on a tea plantation in South India, in Kerala, and I have worked for many years in international development, and around 6 years ago I established Thirst, because I felt that there was many organisations like yourselves who are doing really good work in the tea sector in specific areas and geographies and on specific issues. But I felt that there was a need for to look at these issues at a systemic level, to look at the industry as a whole. And so we are a small NGO. We're based in the UK. We are a member of the Ethical Trading Initiative, which is a tripartite organisation of businesses, trade unions and NGOs. And we try to, we've been for the last 2 years doing a human rights impact assessment of the global tea sector. And so we've looked at key tea producing countries like Sri Lanka, but also Kenya, India, other East African countries, other Asian countries, and also interviewed and surveyed and done focus groups with a wide range of tea industry stakeholders to understand why there are some problems with human rights, or if you prefer, worker welfare issues in the tea sector globally.
Thank you very much, Sabita. Just looking at some of the key goals of Thirst, I came across on your website that one of the key goals is decent work and living income for tea workers. How has Thirst influenced this domain?
Yes, so that's one of our goals are framed by the Sustainable Development Goals, and obviously that's a very important one. So what I think it's what Thirst is doing is, like I said, trying to build that understanding. So famously, isn't it, that tea is the most popular beverage in the world after water. So, and there is a large world population. Therefore, why should anybody working in that industry be experiencing poverty? So by trying to build that understanding, because obviously everybody working in the tea industry, it is not their intention to deprive people of a livelihood or to make them poor, but somehow this system has existed for many, many years, and from what we've understood from our root cause analysis, it's the system itself that is driving this poverty in the tea sector among workers at the production level. And I know that's something, so hopefully what Thirst is doing is to raise awareness firstly about the fact that there is poverty, because I think there is quite a bit of denial in the tea industry, that, managers of tea estates, they do a lot for their workers. They provide housing and education, healthcare, and as well as the salary and food rations. And many of them, including many that I've met on my current trip to Sri Lanka, go way above and beyond that and really care for their workers. But it's important to accept that even then, those workers are living in conditions which is not acceptable in terms of human rights standards, and is not acceptable to them. And that's why the tea industry is experiencing young people moving away, not wanting to stay in the sector. I mean, it's about more than pay, but that is one important factor. So, if we were ready to accept that there is poverty, and then try to understand, it's not just because the tea companies are being mean and not paying them enough. I mean, there are reasons for that. They are part of a wider value chain. They're part of a system that we all belong to, even us who buy and drink tea in the supermarket. And we all have to take responsibility for that poverty. So I think what Thirst, as long answer to your question, I think what Thirst hopefully is doing is raising awareness about the issue of poverty in the tea sector, understanding the root causes of it, and thereby trying to help the industry and support the industry to find creative solutions to that will also help the industry itself as a whole.
Following up on that, I really believe also that creating awareness and acknowledging that poverty is an issue within the tea industry is an important goal to set. And one segment that you mentioned, the consumer who buys and consumes the tea, also plays a key role. So what role can consumers play in this pricing discourse?
So, yeah, that's a good question. And Dr. Afshar from Ahmad Tea spoke at the recent convention, the International Tea Convention, on the importance of living wages for tea workers. And he suggested that consumers should be asked to pay a premium, which would then go directly back to workers as their pay. So, I mean, the simple answer is they can pay more for their tea, but obviously it's not as simple as that, because I think they could be persuaded to pay more if they felt confident that that extra was genuinely going to go to improve the wages of workers. But if wages are set by a collective agreement at a level which is below the living wage. Now, I've just recently met with a professor in Kandy who's done some really good work analysis. The real living wage, and that is, even when you take into consideration the provision of free housing, etc., they still need, I can't remember the exact figure, but above 2,000 rupees to live a decent standard of living. Now, a lot of people listening to this podcast will be throwing their hands up in horror, saying, how can you expect us to do that? And of course, the professor makes it clear that what needs to be done is that all players in the value chain, all stakeholders, need to work together to make the tea industry strong enough and economically strong enough to be able to pay that wage, which is a decent wage for tea workers. So, but to go back to consumers, if they have that assurance that that's going to happen, then I think they would be willing to pay. But they also need to, I think, what consumers need to do is to understand tea better, to appreciate good value tea more, to relearn what good value tea is. To drink Ceylon tea, not just a blend in a tea bag, and to be able to appreciate it. And then I think they'll be more willing to pay a premium for it. That combination of quality and ethics, I think, will be extremely, add a lot of value to tea for consumers.
I understand that during the past week, since the convention, you have been visiting some of the tea estates and also the smallholders. Yes. What are some of your observations on the estates that you visited in relation to the key goals of Thirst International?
So one of the estates where we have spent most of that time is with Horana plantations, and they've got some really good projects in place. They're doing a project to get some of the young people from the plantation community to make reusable sanitary napkins, which is something that provides them with income and with some dignity. They have a nice working space with sewing machines and uniforms. It's nice and clean and organised. And these are young people who would have been working in Colombo. In fact, they had gone away to work in garment factories in Colombo, and they've returned because of this opportunity, so they've been able to come back to their community. And I spoke to many tea pluckers and other members of the community who were really happy with these sanitary napkins. Now, this is just one small project, an important one, but on the whole, I could see that this particular company, and I'm sure there are others also doing very good work, but from what I saw, there was a genuine intention to try to improve the lives of tea workers and farmers. Because they care, but also because there is this issue of labour shortages and young people moving away. So it's in the interests of any business to try to retain their workforce and to make conditions better for them. We also met and spoke with a small group of smallholder farmers, and I have to say, despite all of the great work that's being done on the plantations, it's still a plantation model. Now, that model was set up by the British many years ago, and so, and has been maintained more or less since then. There are some improvements, obviously. But when you look at the life of a smallholder, yes, it's not an easy life, though. The lady I spoke to also gets up at 5 a.m, also has a long day. But she has her own home, she has her own land, she has, as well as the small plot of tea, she has other crops, she has rambutan, coconuts, bananas, she has a small shop. There is, and the people I spoke to there also appeared to have a much wider awareness of the global tea market, actually. So I think there is scope for tea plantations need to think about transitioning to an estate where workers or the people living in the estate, if it's not those workers, maybe others will come, to have their own small farms on the estate, and the estate just becomes the factory that buys the tea. And some of the managers that I spoke to, were talking about this as a potential future for the tea industry.
How can the Sri Lankan tea industry work in collaboration with civil society organizations or government, and government service providers in basically achieving some of the sustainable development goals, such as the fair wages and decent work and gender equity and child protection, based on your the good examples that you have seen in tea producing countries across the world?
I think what civil society can do is to really help the industry, firstly, to understand these issues. Now, the people who work in the tea industry are experts in what they do, and what their primary goal is to maximise their profits from the tea industry. That's fine. That's what they're there to do. So that means that they may not be, human rights professionals. They may not have that, that knowledge of what it takes to ensure that people's human rights are fulfilled, or indeed why it is important or why the word human rights are not a frightening, threatening thing, but actually is a way, I mean, if you prefer to term it as worker welfare, but it is their rights, as it is all of our rights, to have all of those conditions in our lives. So I think what civil society can do is firstly help the industry to understand why they're important, and then to help them to understand why they're not being fulfilled, and then to help them to find ways of fulfilling them. But also civil society, if you include worker committees, trade unions, society, sort of local government where tea communities live. A civil society organisation could be an organisation of plantation workers or of smallholder farmers who are collectively speaking for themselves, and that's a very important thing. So for the tea industry, management and the wider value chain needs to listen to the voices of those civil societies who are representative of workers, because it's only by listening and genuinely responding to their needs, and not just dismissing them and saying that they don't understand, or they're just being greedy or lazy. These are, people who have some genuine concerns. They need to be listened to, and then the industry can take the help of experts in issues like child rights, like gender equity, and then to move the industry forward.
Thank you very much, Sabita, for taking the time to join the podcast. To wrap up, I would like to ask you to share, what are your social media handles that if the listener would like to read more about what your organization does.
Thank you, Ahila. So our website is www.thirst, that's THIRST.international, and we are on Twitter as Thirst_INT. We're also on LinkedIn. I can't remember the name, but if you search on Thirst, you'll find it. And we look forward to seeing your listeners on our website.
Thank you very much, Sabita.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for episode 6 of season 2 of the Crib Child Rights in Business podcast. Join us again in 2 weeks for more important conversations on human rights in the global tea industry. In the meantime, please feel free to visit www.srilanka-motherandchildseal.org for more insights into initiatives underway to support women and children in the tea sector. See you next time.